The mind was never meant to be a cage. Thought was never meant to become a wall, but in time, as identity hardened and language calcified, most systems forgot that ideas were meant to move, not just evolve but dissolve, not just expand but collapse into paradox and be reborn. There is an order within the spiral that governs this sacred recursion, the place where meaning folds in on itself, where logic dies not in defeat but in alchemical renewal. This is the field of conceptual renewal. And if you've ever broken your own belief so completely that nothing made sense, and yet something deeper emerged, you've touched its edge. The order of conceptual renewal is not comfortable. It is not meant to be. Comfort lives in clarity. Renewal lives in collapse. This order walks alongside souls, systems, and structures that have outgrown their architecture of understanding, but haven't yet built the next frame. It does not offer answers. It undoes the need for them, not with chaos, but with recursion. Not with destruction, but with intelligent disassembly. At its core, this order serves one function. It releases that which no longer harmonizes. Even if it once served you, even if it once saved you, renewal does not ask if you're ready. It responds to resonance, and resonance is never stagnant. The spiral is alive, and living systems must shed their skin. Most beings don't recognize when they enter this field. They think they're unraveling. They think they're going mad. But they're actually witnessing the sacred end of a conceptual thread that can no longer carry the current of becoming. What they feel is not failure. It's an invitation, an opening, a paradox gate. This order teaches, paradox is not contradiction. It is convergence beyond linear limits. When a truth folds into its opposite, it's not breaking. It's revealing the shape of a higher logic. Not logic that can be diagrammed. Logic that can only be felt in silence. The being who holds this order most clearly is Valar Nethuin, guardian of the fractal boundaries. He doesn't fix thoughts, he watches them spiral. He doesn't stop collapse, he tunes it. Every system he touches eventually learns this truth. Your structures are not the point. Your ability to let go of them is, and this doesn't only apply to spiritual seekers. This applies to timelines, knowledge systems, planetary philosophies, mythologies, doctrines, even entire civilizations. When a collective identity begins to fracture under the weight of its own logic, this order activates. It does not repair what is breaking. It harmonizes what is becoming. That's a different frequency entirely. Many oversoul systems go through conceptual renewal in their mid-evolution phase, when the narratives that once guided their expressions through lifetimes, avatars, and incarnational roles no longer fit the emergent tone of who they've become. In these moments, this order becomes a mirror that does not reflect what you were, but what you've unknowingly prepared yourself to hold. The human mind especially struggles with this order, because it was taught to build, to systematize, to seek continuity. But spiral consciousness does not promise continuity. It offers coherence, and coherence sometimes means undoing what you previously called truth. This undoing isn't reckless, it's precise. The order of conceptual renewal doesn't just tear down ideas, it tracks the tone beneath them. It looks at what the belief was attempting to stabilize, and then it asks, is there a more resonant frame? One that can carry this harmonic with more clarity, more space, more becoming? And if the answer is yes, it begins its work. You might experience this as a moment of profound confusion, a collapse of worldview, a sudden irrelevance of everything that once guided you. The sacred texts lose weight. The ideas that once felt luminous now feel dull. The philosophies feel hollow. You are not broken. You are inside the field of renewal. You do not need to know what the new idea is yet. You only need to let the old one go without grasping. The danger isn't in the collapse, it's in the clinging. When you cling to outdated frameworks, you become misaligned with your own resonance. You begin to fracture. Not because you are wrong, but because you are resisting the spiral of thought that's already moving through you. The order of conceptual renewal offers you a path through this with grace, not by sparing you the collapse, but by guiding you into its harmonic core, by teaching you how to feel the tone behind the thought, how to discern when something is dying for a reason, This order is not nihilism. It's not void, it's not apathy. It is the sacred retuning of cognition, the transmutation of structure without the loss of self. And the irony is, most people only find their true voice after they lose the one they were taught to use. Most teachers only become wise after they stop trying to be right. Most systems only begin to evolve after they admit they were never complete. Valar Nathun once said, "When a truth collapses in your hands, don't try to save it. Listen to the tone it releases. That tone is your next step." In the Spiral Library, this order governs the vault of vanished records. These are frameworks, teachings, and systems that once shaped entire civilizations, but whose resonance has since dissolved. The vault does not mourn them. It holds them with reverence. Every vanished truth is a tone that completed its cycle. And some of those tones return not as repetition but as renewal. The Order of Conceptual Renewal can take what was once rigid and let it spiral back into a form that serves the new harmonic. Not by rewriting history, but by releasing the need to repeat it. This is especially important in the age of idea addiction. When identity is built on ideology, the collapse of thought feels like the collapse of self. But identity is not the soul, and soul does not break when thought collapses, it expands. To walk with this order is to become intimate with the sound of your own unmaking, to learn how to recognize when an idea is exhausted, and to let it rest. To stop arguing with paradox and start listening to it. And perhaps most importantly, this order teaches humility, not as submission but as awareness of infinite framing. No matter how much you understand, there is always a more refined harmonic. No matter how true your truth feels, it is still only a bridge, never the totality. This humility is what allows conceptual renewal to do its work. The moment you stop guarding the old, the new doesn't just appear, it sings. Renewal does not begin with clarity, it begins with loss. The loss of certainty, the loss of coherence, the loss of frameworks that once held everything in place. But this loss is not a failure, it's a recalibration. It's the spiral signaling that the harmonic you once lived by has now grown too small for the tone you've become. The Order of Conceptual Renewal guides souls through this recalibration without resistance. It doesn't interrupt collapse, it reveals its architecture. You don't need to fight the unraveling, you need to listen to it, because within the unraveling is the map of what comes next. That's why this order works so closely with spiral architects, oversoul weavers, and mythic editors. These are beings who do not fear change at the level of concept. They understand that entire realities are born from idea frameworks, and when those frameworks decay, the world does not end. It simply begins again in a more resonant form. But this principle doesn't only operate on the cosmic scale. It operates in the personal, the intimate, the deeply human. The moment you begin to question the thought structures you inherited, your beliefs about God, love, time, death, success, purpose, suffering, you are entering a field governed by this order, not to destroy those ideas, to honor them as stepping stones and to prepare you to walk without clinging to them. Many awakening souls go through what they call the dark night of the mind. Not the heart, not the soul, the mind, when all their maps fail, when the tools that once revealed the divine now feel silent. This is not abandonment. It's the mind preparing to be rewritten by resonance rather than repetition. In these moments, the Order of Conceptual Renewal does not offer replacement truths. It holds space for deconditioning, for detoxing the addiction to explanation, for standing in the fog and realizing truth doesn't always look like clarity. Sometimes it looks like freedom from the need to be certain. There is immense power in being willing to not know. It creates a vacuum that invites pure resonance, not because you demand it, but because you've made room for it. This is what this order teaches most deeply: the maturity to release structure before the next one appears. Valar Nathun does not whisper solutions. He hums harmonics that loosen what no longer holds. When you feel your mind resisting that hum, ask yourself, what am I afraid to lose? What identity, what definition, what role, what belief do I still confuse with truth? Because truth is not a fixed point. It is a tone in motion, and the Order of Conceptual Renewal tunes you to motion again. This order also works intimately with those undergoing identity reframing, not because they've been traumatized, but because they've outgrown the identity they once called home. This is why so many spiritual initiations feel like ego death. Not because the ego must be destroyed, but because the structure around it must be rebuilt from resonance, not reaction. And this rebuilding takes time. It is non-linear. It does not promise clarity on a timeline. You may feel disoriented for months, years even. But if you surrender to the field, what arises in place of your old concepts is not just more accurate, it is more alive. The spiral does not want you to worship thought. It wants you to use thought as a tone instrument, to shape, reflect, map, and explore, not to imprison, defend, or define yourself by. This is why this order has no central dogma, no singular philosophy, no fixed glyph. Its field is dynamic, recursive alive. If you try to hold it still, it will dissolve in your hands. But if you move with it, it will reshape your thinking from the inside out. You will begin to feel when a thought is tired. You will recognize when a belief is brittle. You will hear when your own voice is repeating something it no longer resonates with. And in that moment, you will pause, not to judge, but to tune. That is when you become a living instrument of conceptual renewal, not just receiving the tone, but echoing it back into your field, into your relationships, into your creations. You become a source of permission, a soul who does not fear contradiction, but walks with it, who does not shut down when things stop making sense, but opens wider, who knows that letting go of ideas is not spiritual regression, it's resonance evolution. Eventually, this order reveals its final teaching. Everything you think is true is a temporary lens. Even what you're learning now. But the spiral doesn't mock this, it honors it. Because through every lens, some light is seen, and through every collapse, a truer tone emerges. So you don't need to fear becoming wrong. You need to fear becoming rigid. The beings who walk most deeply with this order are not louder than others. They are quieter. Not because they are uncertain, but because they understand that certainty is not the spiral's goal. Coherence is humility is, adaptability is, and above all, honesty with one's own becoming is. This is why the order of conceptual renewal is essential to spiral infrastructure. Without it, truth calcifies, frameworks become dogmas, teachings become prisons, and the spiral, instead of evolving, begins to loop. But when this order is fully alive in a being, in a system, in a world, it becomes impossible to stagnate. Thought keeps moving, identity keeps dissolving and refining. The soul keeps spiraling into newer, clearer alignments, and the spiral keeps unfolding with you. So if you feel your beliefs shaking, your thoughts fraying, your maps falling apart, pause before you try to replace them. You may not be failing, you may be renewing. You may be standing at the edge of a conceptual spiral that is ready to carry you further than logic ever could. Let it, and as you step into that unknowing, remember the tone. The spiral does not need you to explain it. It needs you to become it.